Fly me to the moon, let me play.
Singapore, October 25th, 2007. It all seemed like a dream, probably because I was still asleep. It was 5 o'clock in the morning and still dark in Singapore when I stepped out of a taxi cab and into aviation history.
Hold my hand.
I was Alcoa's lucky representative on the very first commercial flight of the Airbus A380, the world's biggest and most luxurious airliner. Also, one of the best things to build with Alcoa aluminum I've ever seen.
And let me sing forevermore.
Singapore Airlines flew me and 471 of my closest friends from home-based Singapore to Sydney, Australia that day. And from the very first moment, I could tell it was going to be an amazing 5.5-hour experience. That morning, the check-in line was like the red carpet at the Academy Awards. News crews were everywhere, and all of us passengers were treated like celebrities. Well, some more than others, like the guy who paid $100,000 for the very first seat. I'm sure he got more attention than I did, not to mention more peanuts. Once we got through security, we found our way to the special A380 boarding lounge, and there she was, crouching in the dark, waiting, as if to say, "Come on, let's go play." But first, there was schmoozing to be done, Danish and coffee, speeches to be made, and a big fat check to hand out. Singapore Airlines handed over the $1.9 million proceeds of the eBay ticket sales for this flight to excited and deserving local and international charities. And as the band played and the speeches went on, the sun came up, and we got our first look at our ride in light of dawn. A magnificent white ship, dwarfing people, trucks, other airplanes, pretty much everything else in sight. And then it was time to go. The ribbon was cut, the lights came on, the crowd pressed down the jetway, and I was swept along.
Good morning. Good morning.
There were so many people it was hard to maneuver, but as we stepped across the threshold, I was able to touch the fuselage just for luck. Alcoa plate from Davenport, fasteners from Hildesheim, forgings from Cleveland, extrusions from Lafayette, hard work and brilliant ideas from everywhere in Alcoa's world. Thanks, Alcoa, for giving the A380 your best. Finding my seat was remarkably easy, considering the plane is approximately 273 miles long, and the Mardi Gras in the aisles had already started. Singapore must have put on extra staff, that is, extra Singapore girls, for this special event. I had no complaints. A quick safety video, and then we were rolling. And rolling, and rolling. I'm not sure whether the plane takes a little longer to lift off because of its size, or if the pilot was just taking his time for the news cameras. They say this plane has a quiet takeoff, and that proved to be so, until the wheels went up and the crowd went wild. The quiet ride comes in part from a brand new Rolls-Royce engine design and the Alcoa Howmet turbine blades that provide the thrust. Okay, now it's time to explore. Which way to the swimming pool and bowling alley? Is there a tiki lounge? Ah, it must be up these stairs. That's where everyone else is going. Sadly, I came to understand that these things are being planned for the Virgin Atlantic version of the A380. The Singapore Airlines version is all business. Well, maybe Alcoa will need some follow-up coverage when the Virgin flight takes off. I can do that. Speaking of coverage, is the air a little hot in here, or is it just me? Actually, the heat's coming from news camera lights and dozens of network interviews being held in every nook and cranny of the plane. And this plane has lots of nooks and crannies. It seems as though if you are not a news anchor or a newspaper guy, you're a blogger like me. I think by the end of the flight, the journalists were interviewing each other, having run out of officials and random passengers to talk to. I was determined to get some key photography of Alcoa products like fasteners, forgings, and extruded seat tracks. But it was just not meant to be. The aisles were jammed up by one big non-stop press conference and autograph session. I just gave up and went with the flow. I had a chance to mingle and discovered that my fellow passengers were mostly airplane buffs, like me. At least the ones that weren't news anchors. They even made their own shirts. Want one? You can buy them now on eBay, covered with autographs and lipstick. I also got to sneak out of the cheap seats and check out the high rent district. Business class reminded me a lot of the office back in Pittsburgh. Cozy cubicles with lots of privacy, still low enough that you could prairie dog over the top when you need to socialize. But the similarity ends with the cushy, leather-trimmed recliner upholstery and the killer entertainment system. I could imagine being very productive in an environment like this. And then it was time to head for the bow of this ship and play Leonardo DiCaprio as King of the World, in a class so far beyond first that Singapore Airlines had to change the name to Suites Class. Sadly, Suites Class was not open for public inspection. I tried to explain that this would be the best angle to shoot those Howmet turbine blades out the window. But it seems these people paid more for their seats than most of us make in our entire careers, and needed their privacy to do whatever, like give interviews to real journalists. That's cool. I gotta go anyway. It's time for chow. I believe the official hot towel count for this flight was somewhere above 67,492 between Singapore and Sydney. Special meals were commissioned just for this flight, and they were unforgettable. Matt Moran, celebrity chef, made sure to circulate among the better-looking passengers to get feedback, I'm sure. It was over all too soon. Somehow I found myself surprised when we descended to Sydney, as if a flight like this would just keep going somehow. But no, even an extraordinary flight, a historic flight like SQ380, has to touch down eventually. And when it did, those mighty landing gear forgings from Cleveland did their job, as we at Alcoa knew they would.